The drama begins by introducing the main character, Park, who is leisurely sitting on the school rooftop, simply passing time. However, the teachers and everyone around mistakenly believe he is about to commit suicide. Amused by how naive they are, Park intentionally remains seated. Next, we meet the female lead, Yoon, a student at the same school. Due to Park's actions, the school's break was delayed, so Yoon used the excuse of needing to go to the restroom to leave class early. Yoon walks up to the rooftop and sits next to Park, asking if he is really planning to commit suicide. Park replies that he just came for some fresh air because he's upset about injuring his leg, which means he can no longer play baseball. Hearing this, Yoon tries to encourage him, and eventually, Park agrees to leave with her. However, unexpectedly, Yoon pushes him off the roof. Park is shocked, but he survives since safety precautions were already in place. The police, witnessing this, are stunned and begin to arrest Yoon. As she runs, Yoon approaches Park, asking for help. Park, knowing she didn't intend to harm him, sets a condition he will only help her if she becomes his girlfriend. Yoon is completely shocked, having no idea that Park would propose to her in such a situation. The story then jumps forward 12 years into the present, where we find that Yoon has joined the military. In her military life, she has formed a strong bond with a fellow soldier named Tai, who has become a close friend. Meanwhile, a parallel storyline unfolds as we are shown a building where unsettling sounds of someone being assaulted are emanating from one of the rooms. Concerned, a person named Chase decides to investigate the source of the noise, but as he approaches the room, someone suddenly pulls him inside, and the violent sounds continue, suggesting a struggle or confrontation is taking place. In the following scene, we shift focus to Park, who has now transitioned into a new phase of his life as a police officer. He is sitting in his patrol car, listening to the latest updates on the radio. The news broadcast reports that the number of COVID-19 cases has significantly decreased, allowing people to finally enjoy a sense of relief and freedom by no longer needing to wear masks in public. Interestingly, Park is wearing a baseball cap, hinting at his continued love for the sport, even though he doesn't play as frequently as he once did. Park, along with his partner Gong, responds to the situation at the building where the disturbing noises had been heard. Upon arrival, they enter the room and discover the body of the individual who had been pulled inside. It is reported that the cause of death was severe blood loss. The two officers then start searching for the weapon used in the killing. Instead of finding the weapon, they come across the perpetrator hiding under the bed. Park asks, "Why did you kill him?" The perpetrator replies, "I don't really know, it all felt like a dream, and I was just overwhelmed by a strong, intense feeling of thirst." Park inspected the killer's teeth and discovered that the individual had consumed the victim's blood and killed him in a brutal, almost animalistic way. Disturbed by this revelation, Park proceeds to arrest the killer. In the following scene, Yoon informs Tai about a military personnel apartment offer, which is free under two conditions: having a high point score and being married. She mentions her desire to get an apartment since she lacks her own home. At that moment, Yoon receives a call from Park, showing that they remain in touch. Park informs Yoon about the recent case, revealing that Tom, a member of her team, was implicated in supplying drugs to the killer. Park advises Yoon to confront Tom. When Yoon and Tai visit Tom, Yoon is shocked to see Tom attacking another officer in a savage manner. She attempts to stop him, but when he does not respond, she opens fire on him. Despite this, Tom remains unaffected. As a result, Yoon and Tai try to physically subdue Tom. They manage to push him aside, though in the process, one of Tom's nails scratches Yoon's lip. Tai quickly helps the other officer out, and Yoon also exits. Tom is locked in the room, but instead of calming down, he starts banging his head against the door like he's lost control. Eventually, he settles down and cries out in pain. Yoon is left in shock, trying to understand what has happened to Tom. At that moment, the rest of the group arrives and takes Tom with them. Afterward, Yoon calls Park, furious, and explains the whole situation. She demands to know if Park was aware of what would happen when he sent her to check on Tom. Park starts to defend himself, insisting he never intended to put her in danger. Suddenly, Yoon checks her hand and realizes that she has been bitten. At this point, Mr. Han, a powerful and influential figure, is introduced, arriving with his own military forces to take the injured officer and Tom into custody. Later, Mr. Han approaches Yoon and tells her she needs to come with them, informing her that Tom has been infected with a contagious disease, and since she was in contact with him, she could also be at risk. He tells her that she needs to be immediately tested. Initially, Yoon was hesitant to go but eventually agreed. Later, Mr. Han arrives at the police station to take custody of the person Park had arrested. He talks with Park and another officer, Gong, explaining that both arrested individuals are infected with a disease that spreads through bites, causing the infected to bite others and drink their blood, similar to zombies. He mentions that they are conducting research on this but typically keep the information confidential. However, since Park and Gong are handling the case, they needed to know. Surprised, Park asks about the green tablet the arrested person had mentioned, saying it made him feel extremely thirsty after taking it. Mr. Han dismisses this, assuring there's no such thing, but instructs them to bring anything unusual directly to him. After Mr. Han leaves, Park returns to the building where he had caught the suspect hiding. He thoroughly searches the area and eventually discovers the green tablet. Park hands the tablet to a friend, asking them to test it and find out what it actually is. Meanwhile, in the next scene, a large research facility with tight security, located in a remote area, appears, where a girl named Jisoo conducts the test on Yoon. At the same time, Mr. Han also informs Yoon about the infected individuals. Yoon then asks if she will start biting people, while Jisoo, scared, watches in fear. To lighten the mood, Yoon pretends to bite Jisoo, which frightens her even more and makes her angry. Enraged, she forcefully takes Yoon's skin sample and walks away. Later, Yoon receives a room to rest in. While talking to Park on the phone, she tells him about her checkup and how strict the security is. Suddenly, strange noises like someone breaking through a wall catch her attention. Looking outside, she sees that the entire building is full of infected people, each locked inside their own room. The next morning, Park discovers the origins of the tablets. He learns that they were developed during the COVID-19 pandemic to treat patients but were discontinued due to severe side effects. Shocked by this information, he asks his friend to immediately track down Yoon's location. At the research facility, Yoon, who has just woken up, is approached by Jisoo to go somewhere with her. Yoon spots Tom and tries to approach him, however Jisoo tries to stop her. Yoon doesn't comply with her. She quickly enters Tom's room and locks the room, preventing Jisoo from entering. She talks with Tom, asking if he still remembers her. Tom nods and reveals that he doesn't remember much about the previous day except feeling extremely thirsty. As she tries to question him further, Tom falls silent and keeps repeating, "I'm so thirsty." Jisoo warns Yoon from the outside to stay back, but Yoon continues forward. As soon as she gets close, Tom suddenly transforms into a zombie and attacks her. Yoon struggles to protect herself until a military team arrives and subdues Tom with electric shocks. Yoon, visibly shaken by the encounter, realizes that Mr. Han has been watching everything through the CCTV cameras. Finally, Park arrives at the research facility but is initially denied entry. He tells the guards to inform their leader that he has brought the green tablet, and only then is he allowed inside. Yoon, still angry, confronts Mr. Han, accusing him of deliberately letting her meet Tom, knowing the danger. Mr. Han accepts this. He explains that since Tom has recognized his family, he wants to see if Tom would still attack Yoon. After considering his explanation, Yoon listens as Mr. Han continues to explain that the room's air conditioning is meant to reduce Tom's thirst, but now only blood can satisfy it. Mr. Han then informs Yoon that her medical report is normal, allowing her to return home, though not to the military camp. He arranges for her to return for weekly checkups and grants her a few months of leave along with an entry card to the research facility. Yoon also asks if he can increase her points to help her get an apartment, and Mr. Han agrees. Yoon, delighted, begins to praise Mr. Han. When she extends her hand toward him, he apologizes, saying, "I don't do handshakes." Yoon smiles and explains that she wasn't asking for a handshake but for her phone, which Mr. Han quietly hands back to her. Yoon is about to leave when Mr. Han asks if she has a boyfriend. She replies that while she does like him, he is a bit older than her. Mr. Han explains that she has been mistaken, and he asks that because marriage is required to get an apartment. He advises her to start planning her marriage. Yoon agrees to think about it and departs. Outside, she requests her clothes from Jisoo, but Jisoo informs her that they have been burned. Just then, Park approaches Yoon and gets to know that she is completely fine. He then asks Yoon to wait outside while he delivers the green medicine to Mr. Han and then leaves. Back outside, Yoon asks Park if he is seeing anyone. Park says no, and when she inquires if he snores while sleeping, he answers no again. Yoon then proposes marriage to Park. Park is stunned, recalling his previous school proposal to Yoon that she had rejected. He now claims he was only joking, but Yoon insists she is serious about marrying him. Park, even more surprised, suggests they talk outside. He questions whether Yoon wants to marry him just for the apartment. Yoon assures him that her feelings are genuine and that the apartment is just a bonus. Park, who still has feelings for Yoon, agrees to be her pretend husband. Meanwhile, the zombie virus spreads as some people are selling the green tablets in secret. Mr. Han keeps this information from the public for the time being. He visits a restaurant where a zombie has killed many. However, in this age of the internet, keeping secrets from the public is not very easy. Someone has posted the video of the incident online. We see Tai watching that video. Just then, Yoon approaches him and asks him what is happening outside. She informs him about the incident with Tom. Yoon also happily mentions having 6 months of leave and many points, which will help her secure the apartment easily. Tai congratulates her, but deep down, he is troubled. He goes to an empty room, and upon checking his neck, he finds he also has been scratched by infected Tom, increasing his worry. When Yoon comes there, he quickly hides his neck and talks about his concerns for Tom and the other officer bitten, and the danger of entering the research building, saying that no one has come back alive from there. Yoon reassures him she is safe and has returned with points, which Tai finds unusual since she is the only person who has ever returned from there. After that, she arrives at her new apartment building, where Yoon meets an eccentric individual named Kim. Despite COVID being over, Kim is still cautious and stays away from people. He also gives Yoon a mask. She reaches her apartment and sees Park hanging a photo of them from their first meeting, taken by Mr. Gani, on the wall to prove their marriage if needed. Yoon is surprised by how carefully Park has preserved their photo. After that, Yoon distributes rice cakes to introduce herself to the neighbors. She first meets a child named Seo Yan, who takes the rice cake and closes the door. When Yoon tries to deliver a cake on the second floor, she finds the door locked. Seo Yan tells her that this is because the wealthier residents on upper floors do not want the ground floor residents to come up. Yoon, displeased, forces the door open. Then, she gives a rice cake to a lawyer named Guk, who takes the cake but later throws it away, advising his wife not to accept things from strangers. Yoon then goes to Mr. Bak's apartment but receives no answer. Eventually, Mr. Bak's wife takes the rice cake and after entering the house, questions her husband about why he did not answer the door. Mr. Bake explains he was in the shower. Later, it is revealed that Mr. Bake's wife, Mingji, has the green tablet that causes zombification. Unaware of its effects, she consumes it. Mr. Bake cleverly takes her wife out of the room because he had hidden her lover under the bed. Back in her apartment, Yoon is thrilled about setting up her new home and feels like it is a dream. She talks about how she has always wanted her own space after living in various rented homes. Because of that, her parents always fought. Now, she finally has her own place. Park, happy to be with Yoon, covers her with a blanket. In the middle of the night, they hear loud noises from the apartment above, where the lady who took the green tablet has turned into a zombie. This signals a serious issue in their building. They decide to ignore this for the night and go back to sleep, thinking that there is nothing serious. The next morning, Mr. Han visits Park, who is upset with him for taking multiple blood samples from Yoon. Mr. Han tries to ease the tension by revealing that he is the one who arranges Park's marriage to Yoon. Park, surprised, questions how that is possible, as he believes he wins Yoon over with his skills. Mr. Han explains that without his intervention, Yoon would never have agreed to marry him, leaving Park taken aback. Mr. Han then explains his purpose for visiting. He wants to work with Park because he knows Park is intelligent and already aware of the green tablets and the infected patients. Handing over Tom's phone, Mr. Han asks Park to impersonate Tom and order all the medicine from the drug dealer. Park points out that they lack the funds needed for such a transaction, but Mr. Han gives him a bag of money to purchase the green tablets. Meanwhile, loud noises are still coming from the upstairs apartment, prompting Yoon to visit Mr. Bake's apartment to see what is happening. On her way, she encounters Seo, who gives her a thank you card for the rice cakes. Both of them go to Mr. Bake's apartment for the noise complaint. They mention that the noise kept them awake all night. Mr. Bake apologizes, assuring them it won't happen again. On the other hand, Tai is deeply distressed and even ignores his wife's calls. In his frustration, he cuts his hand with a piece of glass and then calls Yoon, confessing that he also got scratched by Tom that day and feels like he is becoming infected. Terrified, he pleads for help. Yoon is shocked and tells him to stay where he is so she can help. She quickly arrives and takes him to the research building, reassuring him that it is just a minor injury, though she later discovers the cut is more serious. Jisoo takes skin samples from Tai and advises him to rest. She removes only one of Tai's handcuffs and leaves the other on before taking Yoon away. After they leave, Tai recalls an offer from a reporter promising a large sum of money for a video exposing the conditions in the research building. This reveals that Tai came to the building partly out of greed. That is why Tai displayed the hand injury and hid the real scratch wound on his neck. Meanwhile, Yoon asks Jisoo to open her bag, and inside she finds a rice cake, which deeply moves Jisoo, as she has no family and it is the first act of kindness she ever received. When Yoon and Jisoo get back to Tai, they find him missing. Jisoo goes to inform everyone, and Yoon calls Tai, urging him to return immediately. Tai replies that he can't leave because he has a family and plans to expose the truth to the media for money before abruptly ending the call. Yoon orders the soldiers to find Tai quickly and inquires about the areas with the most patients. She is informed that due to overcrowding, some patients are locked in trucks. Meanwhile, Tai reaches the truck parking area and enters a truck to inspect it. But the soldiers outside notice that maybe the door of the truck is mistakenly left open, so they lock it, locking Tai inside. At that moment, Tai receives a message from the reporter requesting the video. He demands payment first, then starts recording inside the truck. However, suddenly, the people and zombies inside begin moving erratically, which frightens him terribly. Meanwhile, Park and Mr. Han meet with the drug dealer distributing the green tablets. When the dealer grows suspicious and demands to know where Tom is, Park kicks his ass along with his associates. Mr. Han questions where the tablets are stored, and the dealer points to a car trunk. When Park opens the trunk, a zombie jumps out and attacks him. Despite being shot several times by Mr. Han, the zombie remains unharmed. So, he keeps firing until the zombie goes down. Park is stunned and questions Mr. Han's actions, asking how he can shoot someone in front of the police. Mr. Han responds by rhetorically asking if Park considers that creature human. Just then, Mr. Han gets a call from Jisoo, who informs him about the problem at the research building, and Mr. Han urges Park to follow him, explaining that Yoon is also there. Meanwhile, Jisoo's team searches for Tai but can't locate him. When Yoon calls him again, they hear Tai's phone ringtone coming from inside a truck. When they open the door, zombies spill out, and the team fights them off with sticks, managing to confine them back inside. As they close the door, Yoon spots his friend Tai trapped inside and tries to save him while battling the zombies. The zombies grab Yoon, putting everyone at risk. Just in time, Park intervenes and pushes a soldier aside to help Yoon and Tai. He pulls them out with all his strength, but Tai has already turned into a zombie. The soldiers capture him immediately, and Yoon, terrified, can't even respond to Park's concern. From a distance, Mr. Han watches the scene unfold. After a while, Tai, still somewhat coherent, explains that he wants to save money for his family, knowing he will become a zombie and not return alive. Yoon is heartbroken but assures Tai that Mr. Han will soon develop a vaccine for the zombie virus. On their way home, Yoon feels down, so Park tries to cheer her up by treating an old injury of hers. Yoon expresses her confusion about why she seems unaffected by the virus, and Park responds that it is simply good fortune and she is a lucky girl. In the elevator, they encounter Kim. Seeing Yoon kindly talking to Kim makes Park feel a pang of jealousy. Mr. Baek enters the elevator with the girl he is having an affair with. Park notices bloodstains on Mr. Baek's sleeve and grows suspicious about him. Later, Park sets up his laptop to video call his mother in America. Yoon, dressed nicely but nervous, worries about how Park's mother will react to their court marriage. Park reassures her, saying his mother always believes they are together since school. Yoon asks if her outfit looks good, and Park, adjusting her hair, compliments her. During the video call, Park's mother is delighted to see them, but loud noises from the upper floor interrupts the call. Park goes to confront Mr. Baek about it along with Mr. Guk. Mr. Baek explains that his wife is very ill, causing the disturbances, and promises it won't happen again. He introduces the girl he is having an affair with as his wife's manager. Park, still suspicious, politely demands the address of his wife's workplace. Later that night, Mr. Han returns to the drug dealer's location. He finds the dealer's associates infected and attacking each other, while the dealer himself is also in poor condition. But Mr. Han collects the remaining medicine ordered under Tom's name and leaves just as the military arrives and captures the dealer. On the other hand, Park manages to obtain the address of Mr. Baek's wife, Minji's workplace. When he calls the office, he learns Minji hasn't been seen for days. He requests her manager's address. Meanwhile, Yoon receives a call from her often hospitalized mother, who asks her to turn on the TV. The news is reporting on the viral video from the truck recorded by Tai, claiming that it is a dangerous disease called mad person disease, which is being concealed by the government. Yoon reassures her mother not to worry since she is away from the situation. After the call, she realizes her groceries are running low and decides to buy in bulk, anticipating a lockdown. Meanwhile, Park meets Mr. Baek's girlfriend, who becomes scared and provides information about his apartment. When Yoon returns home, she hears noises again from above and confronts Mr. Baek. He apologizes, mentioning that his wife's condition is worsening. Seeing bloodstains on his sleeves, Yoon also grows suspicious and forcefully starts to search the apartment. When she approaches the bathroom, Mr. Baek stops her, warning her not to open the door because Minji's is not the same anymore. Realizing Minji is infected, Yoon explains that if Minji is calm, she might be back to normal. But as Yoon tries to open the door, Mr. Baek shoves her inside, locking her in the bathroom with the now zombified Minji. Terrified, Yoon locks herself in the glass shower area as Minji tries to break through. Finding the opportunity, Yoon cleverly opens the washroom door. Mr. Baek calls the police and then admits his wife has mad person disease. When he turns back, he sees her standing right behind him, fleeing immediately. Minji starts chasing him. Yoon quickly escapes and calls Park. Dr. Baek runs in fear towards Seo-yeon's apartment. Confused, Seo-yeon wonders why he is running, but when she goes outside, she sees the terrifying zombie. Minji slowly advances towards Seo-yeon, but Yoon arrives just in time. She places a pillow over Minji's face and knocks her down, urging Seo-yeon to escape. Despite Yoon's efforts, Minji remains out of control and tries to bite her. Park arrives at the apartment just in time after hearing Yo's distress call. He sees Minji attacking Yoon and quickly uses his jacket to restrain her. After tying Minji's hands and covering her face, he manages to bring her under control. When Park realizes that Dr. Baek is nearby, he approaches him and delivers a heavy punch for putting Seo-yeon and Yoon in danger. Shortly afterward, the medical team arrives and takes Minji away for treatment. As Minji is taken in front of the residents, they are all shocked, as this is the first time they have encountered a zombie in their complex, something they had only heard about in the news. Park starts investigating Dr. Baek's apartment, discovering a golf stick covered in blood, which he decides to keep. He also finds more bloodstains in the washroom and later discovers Minji's green tablet medicine. After that, Mr. Han publicly confirms the reality about the rapid spread of the zombie outbreak. He describes the infection's symptoms, including extreme thirst and white eyes. Later, Park visits Mr. Han at the research facility and gives him the green tablet he retrieved from Mr. Baek's apartment. He also visits Minji to discuss the matter with her, but, upon removing her bandages, finds that she has not yet recovered. This is unusual since most infected people recover within hours. Jisoo explains that Minji was in the final stage of her life, and she survived only because of becoming a zombie, so now she will only return to normal upon her death. Park comes closer to Minji and reassures her that whoever has harmed her will face consequences. Then, Park and Mr. Han visit the truck where zombies are kept because they have put the drug dealer there. Mr. Han warns the dealer that he will remain in the truck indefinitely unless he reveals where he sold the tablets. Fearing for his safety, the dealer confesses everything. The next day, while Park is at the police station considering Minji's case, he receives a call informing him of Minji's death. Immediately, with an arrest warrant, Park arrives at Mr. Baek's apartment along with Wong to arrest him. Dr. Baek, upon learning of his wife's death, secretly feels relieved but pretends to grieve. Seeing his crappy acting makes both Wong and Park utterly surprised. Park inspects the now clean washroom and tells Dr. Baek his cleanup won't be able to save him as he has already retrieved the golf stick he used to hit his wife. Dr. Baek claims he used the stick in self-defense when she attacked him as a zombie. Park counters, saying that the report indicates Minji died from a blow to the head with the golf stick and became a zombie afterward, which allowed her to survive. He also mentions that records show Minji's money was to go to Dr. Baek after her death, explaining why he killed her. Also, Dr. Baek's girlfriend confirmed that Dr. Baek has murdered his wife, being the witness of the whole incident. Meanwhile, Mr. Han is shown sitting beside his infected wife, who is receiving treatment. He recalls the moment a zombie bit her. He then goes to Yoon's complex to warn her that it will soon be overrun with infected people, as the truck dealer revealed he sold the most green tablets to people in the complex, falsely promoting them as weight loss aids. Yoon suggests that Mr. Han should find and remove all those who have taken the green tablet from the complex, but Mr. Han responds that it is too late and pointless. Rather, he has a different plan in his mind. Suddenly, the alarms start blaring and the complex gets sealed off with gates locked and soldiers putting up barriers to prevent anyone from escaping. Yoon expresses concern that the public should have been informed beforehand, but Mr. Han explains that informing them would have caused panic. He offers Yoon a chance to leave, warning her that no one will be able to enter or leave once the place is sealed, but Yoon decides to stay, saying that this is her home. After this, we see that all the residents are distressed, unable to meet their families due to the lockdown. Yoon returns to her building and calls Park, reassuring him and asking him to tell her mother that she is fine. She finds out that Park had already returned to the complex to arrest Dr. Baek and hugs him out of relief. Park did not expect this. Finding the opportunity, Mr. Baek escapes, but Yoon tells Park to let him go since he can't leave the complex due to the lockdown. Dr. Baek, having escaped, makes frantic phone calls to seek help. However, Park catches him again and takes him away. After that, the residents of the building attend a video meeting with Jisoo, who informs them about the mad person disease and its symptoms. Miss Oh-han, the building president, also tries to cheer everyone up about the lockdown situation. Park informs everyone that the lockdown will last a week, also trying to reassure them. After the meeting, Yoon and Park visit Hyuk at the gym to inquire about the drug dealer, as the dealer was delivering the tablets to the gym members as a weight loss supplement. Yoon notices so many water bottles in the dustbin, which means too much thirst, a clear sign of infection. However, Hyuk denies taking the green tablets despite showing signs of infection, so they lock him in a room to prevent him from harming others after turning into a zombie. The cleaning staff is given an apartment to stay in, and Andy, their companion, who always hides his face, also decides to stay with them. When Park questions him about his mask, he explains it's due to a scar. Park finds it strange and grows suspicious of him. When Park visits Mr. Baek again, he gets surprised as Mr. Baek's girlfriend retracts her statement against Dr. Baek because Dr. Baek offered her money to keep her mouth shut. The next day, Park and Yoon go outside to collect food. When they go to deliver some food to Hyuk, who was locked up, they see that he is not in the gym anymore. After searching for him, they discover blood in the elevator and realize a zombie is approaching. But they start running away and finally find Hyuk in the car, who refuses to come with them. They flee back to the building but struggle to get in until an elderly woman lets them in. Suddenly, Hyuk also manages to get back inside the building just in time, saving his ass from the zombie. Park quickly apprehends him and checks if he has become a zombie. After confirming his status, he sends Hyuk back to the gym office. After entering their building, they realize that the entire complex, except their building, is now infected. Andy observes the chaos from his balcony, seemingly enjoying the sight of zombies chasing people. As Yoon and Park arrive at the apartment, Seo-yeon feels terrified, fearing the entire complex might have turned into zombies. Actually, Seo-yeon is staying with them because her family was left outside the complex when the soldiers locked the area. Yoon quickly reassures her, telling her not to overthink and that everything will be fine soon. Meanwhile, an important meeting takes place at the government headquarters where Jisoo gives explanations about the infection, helping everyone understand how it spreads. The infection transmits in 3 ways: through bites, through touch, and by consuming a green tablet. During the meeting, a man asks if there is a cure or if a vaccine is being developed. Before Jisoo can explain that there is no vaccine, Mr. Han interrupts, stating that they are working on one but it will take time to develop. He suggests locking down the whole of Korea, warning that without containment, the entire country could be infected within a month. This causes great concern. Later, Jisoo questions Mr. Han about why he didn't tell the truth. Mr. Han explains that if they admit there is no vaccine, the authorities will order the killing of all the infected, which they cannot allow. They need to find a way to save the infected because they have families too. Meanwhile, the cleaning team sets out to gather food for themselves and others, with Yoon and Park accompanying them for protection. Chul, another resident, joins them to shoot some content for his YouTube channel. As they reach the main door, they see a man who was wandering as a zombie the day before, but now appears normal. Yoon asks if he is okay and if he remembers anything from the previous day, but Park silences her. They all pretended not to know he had been a zombie. A member of the cleaning team knocks on the main door for food but sees no response, rather finds blood on the door. They all decide to leave cautiously, knowing that everyone in the vicinity is infected and might attack at any moment. We then see that Miss Oh-heen heads to her apartment when the same man, who had been pulled away by a zombie the previous day, calls out for help. He claims to have broken through the barricade. Miss Oh-heen agrees to open the door, but then she notices a bandage around his neck and asks about it. He gives a vague excuse. As she is about to unlock the door, she drops a water bottle. Bending down to pick it up, she notices blood under his fingernails. She asks if he is thirsty, but he says nothing, only stares at her. So to check, when she pours the water on the floor, the man immediately bends down to drink and transforms back into a zombie. Miss Oh-heen screams in terror. Meanwhile, others from the building, who haven't received food from the military, go to the supermarket to gather supplies. It quickly turns into a chaotic looting situation. The cleaning team head, Mr. Choi, grabs his favorite items like ice cream and alcohol, while his wife focuses on essentials. Chul is also at the supermarket. There, they find a girl named Borum hiding from zombies while working. Park tries to calm her down and instructs her to stay quiet. As the group gathers supplies, they are alarmed by blood on the floor and decide to leave quietly. However, Chul starts filming the scene for his YouTube video, thinking it is a joke. However, when he encounters a real zombie, panic overtakes him. Just before he was about to be attacked, Andy intervenes and saves him, telling him to run. Together, they sprint to safety. After getting everyone out, Yoon and Park wait for Chul and Andy to catch up before locking the door to keep the zombies out. When the group returns to the apartment complex, Miss Oh-heen refuses to open the gate. Still shaken from her earlier encounter with the zombie, she fears the group is infected after seeing blood on Mr. Choi's head. Tensions rise as Dr. Baek deliberately plays a recording on his phone of his wife Minji screaming and banging her head in the bathroom. The sound heightens everyone's fears, making them believe more zombies are approaching from the other building. In a panic, Chul turns off his phone and gets into fight mode. He picks up something covered in blood and walks over to Dr. Baek's place, smearing the blood on his hands. When Dr. Baek asks what he is doing, Park, without hesitation, smears zombie blood on Baek's face and tells him that he needs to understand what real fear feels like. Dr. Baek goes frantic and starts screaming out of fear. At that moment, Yoon arrives and intervenes, telling Park to calm down. Meanwhile, Chul is excited about the number of zombie videos he has recorded, believing that this will make him famous. However, he soon realizes that he has dropped his mobile phone outside the building and his happiness evaporates instantly. On the other hand, Park goes to his washroom, washes his hands, and apologizes, admitting that he shouldn't have acted that way, but was simply overwhelmed with fear. Yoon comforts Park with a hug, saying, "Good job. You didn't do anything wrong, don't worry. Everything will be fine soon." After that, we see that lawyer Gook is still skeptical about the mad person disease. He hasn't seen any zombies yet, and thus doubts their existence. Just then, an infected person, who is currently in a normal state, contacts lawyer Gook, asking him to meet downstairs for a discussion, stating that he wants to sue someone. The lawyer agrees without hesitation. However, the lawyer's wife, suspecting that there may be a connection to zombies, seeks Yoon's assistance. Later, the man attempts to unlock the door by fooling Gook, but just as he was about to enter, Yoon rushes over and forcefully closes the door. The zombie glares at her angrily. Despite that, Gook doesn't understand anything and scouts at Yoon for driving his customer away. Yoon then takes Gook with her to reveal a real zombie to Gook, convincing him of their existence. Upon seeing the zombie, Gook is terrified as we see that Hyuk has now completely turned into one. In the next scene, Chul is distressed over losing his mobile phone. He uses his mother's phone to call, and while scrolling through her gallery, discovers that she is also infected. Bohram informs him that she knows that his phone fell outside yesterday. Chow offers her a deal: if she retrieves his phone from outside, he will give you a handsome amount of money. She agrees and nervously steps outside. She searches for the phone in various places, but when she finally finds it, she sees the same zombie in front of her and becomes terrified. The zombie slowly approaches her. Meanwhile, Yoon is talking to Kim, who invites her to his apartment for some snacks. Yoon goes to Kim's apartment happily. Boram and Chul hurry inside, attempting to open the lift, while Mr. Gong and Miss Oh-heen's husband ask what is happening. They only say, "Shut up and just freaking run." Suddenly, zombies from the other building come in and launch an attack. Naye, another resident who is with her brother, hears screams, and when they checked outside, no one was there. However, suddenly, a zombie grabs her brother and drags him away. Naye, in shock, quickly escapes to the gym and locks the door. Hyuk is also there, tied up in his normal form. Seeing her scared, he puts on a show and tells Naye that if she uncuffs him, he will surely help her. Terrified, she gives him the keys, and after setting free, he starts drinking a lot of water. Despite that, his thirst doesn't go down and he transforms into his zombie form, eventually attaching Nae, who runs away desperately. Meanwhile, when Park asks Seo Yeon about Yoon's location, she informs him that Yoon has gone to talk to Mr. Kim on the 15th floor. This revelation surprises Park, as he suspects that Kim might be infected. Frustrated, he goes to Kim's apartment and angrily demands that Kim open the door, saying he knows Kim used to take the green tablets. Kim, however, remains silent and quietly grants him permission to enter. Once inside, Park begins searching for Yoon throughout the apartment. Eventually, he finds her calmly eating snacks, which brings Park a sense of relief. Kim then asks if he is happy now, and Park sincerely apologizes to him. When they come back to the apartment, they encounter a zombie there, and Park fends him outside the building, closing back the door again. They go to the gym to check the status there. However, Hyuk jumps on Park from behind and tries to bite him. Yoon assists Park, and together they try to control Hyuk. However, when their efforts failed and Hyuk was about to kill them, Mr. Han spawns there and shoots Hyuk from behind, killing him. Although Yoon was deeply disappointed by this approach, Mr. Han explains that shooting the zombies is now the only option left now. Park runs downstairs to find Gong, who is with the cleaning department. They refuse to open the door, fearing that Park may have turned into a zombie. When Mr. Gong eventually opens the door, the others quickly close it again. Gong, still shaking, explains that they was saved because Miss Oh-heen's husband has powers which he used to keep the zombies at bay. Park finds this explanation odd. Meanwhile, Mr. Han takes Yoon to the rooftop for a private conversation, informing her that the situation outside is also dire, with many cases being managed. Therefore, it is possible that the lockdown may be extended. Mr. Han offers Yoon to come outside with them, but Yoon refuses, stating she cannot leave her family. In response, Mr. Han administers a strong sedative and takes her with him. Park discovers this and chases after their car, realizing they must be planning something malignant. He points a gun at Mr. Han and confronts him about the situation. Yoon also regains her consciousness and points a gun at Mr. Han. This amazes him that Yoon is still able to stand despite the strong sedative, which normally incapacitates even an elephant. After they exit the car, Mr. Han explains that Yoon's blood sample is necessary to create an antibody and stop the infection. He assures them that they will not harm her but just wants to test if a vaccine can be made from her blood. Yoon agrees and provides her blood. Jisoo takes the sample and later in the night, she returns to the building. That night, Nae, distressed by her brother's abduction by the zombies, receives a video call from him. He tells her he is okay, but asks her to take care of his family if he doesn't survive. Nae, overwhelmed by emotion, starts to cry. Then, the power goes out, casting the area into darkness. Nae comes down and uses a flashlight to find her brother. She finds him sitting in a corner, and he is relieved to see her. Seeing her brother's state makes Nae cry even more, so she decides to hide him in an empty apartment. Park and Yoon soon discover that Nae is hiding her brother. Since he appears to be in good condition, they allow him to remain hidden. 2 days pass, and on the day the lockdown was supposed to end, everyone is hopeful. However, an announcement states that the lockdown has been extended, which leads to widespread disappointment. One day, Mr. Gong discusses his fear and longing for his family with Yoon and eventually notices a scratch on her hand, inquiring if it was caused by a zombie. Yoon explains that her team member Tom caused the scratch, but it is no longer a concern. However, Mr. Gong grows anxious seeing the scratch, as no one has survived the infection and becomes wary of Yoon. On the flip side, Mr. Baek takes Miss Oh-han to the apartment where Nae's brother is hiding. When Miss Oh-hina opens the door at Mr. Baek's insistence of a surprise inside, she screams loudly, finding the zombified man there. On the roof, Yoon and Park are spending a good time together, with Park about to express his feelings for Yoon. Just then, Miss Oh-hin arrives there with Mr. Baek, upset about the hidden zombie. Nae's brother apologizes profusely, saying he has done nothing wrong and pleads to stay. Yoon and Park talk with Miss Oh-hin and decide to confine Nae's brother in the gym, allowing only Nae to bring him food. When they discover that Dr. Baek informed Miss Oh-hina about the situation, they confront Dr. Baek, who admits he wants to see everyone perish. As they prepare to take Dr. Baek outside for his malicious intentions, Mr. Gong arrives there with everyone and points a gun at Yoon, claiming that she is infected and should be locked up. They then go to Miss Oh-hina's apartment to check her infection status. Yoon is about to cut her hand to show, but Park cuts his hand and offers his blood for everyone to sniff in order to identify the zombies. Yoon does not react to the blood, but unexpectedly Borum transforms into a zombie as she was infected from the start. Park and Yoon manage to subdue her, but the situation remains extremely dire. When things settle down, Mr. Gong apologizes to Yoon and Park for mistakenly believing Yoon was infected. Yoon forgives him and invites him back into the apartment, advising him to directly consult her if any issues arise in the future. Once inside, Seo is startled by Park's injury. Mr. Gong steps in, giving them a moment of privacy, during which Yoon reprimands Park for cutting his hand to prove his innocence. She shares her shock and concern over his actions. Park reassures her that he won't make her feel that way again. They surely have deep feelings for each other and genuinely care, even though they are not yet prepared to openly express those emotions. In the next scene, it is revealed that Mr. Ohana's husband is also infected and has been taking green tablets. This explains why the zombies did not attack him that day, as infected individuals do not feed on the blood of other infected individuals. When he sees Park's blood on the ground, Mr. Ohana's husband becomes agitated and starts licking it. Miss Ohana, seeing her husband covered in blood, screams and locks herself in a room. As her husband loses control after drinking blood, he leaves the apartment and initially encounters Dr. Bake. However, he returns quickly and hides in his apartment. Miss China's husband then turns to Sang-gi and lawyer Gook. However, Yoon quickly proceeds and tries to save them from him. In an intense encounter, just as he was about to bite Yoon, Park cuts his hand again to distract the zombie. A fight ensues, but eventually, Yoon and Park manage to calm down Mr. Ohin. They go outside and reassure everyone that everything is fine, forgetting that Dr. Bake is hiding in her room. Dr. Bake removes the cloth from Mr. Ohin's face, and when the zombie starts moving towards him, he sidesteps, causing Mr. Ohin to fall off the balcony and die. Dr. Bake enjoys this and then hides back in his room. When the others discover this, Miss Ohina feels devastated by her husband's death and blames Yoon and Park, claiming it is their fault. When Park checks the adjacent room and finds Dr. Bake hiding there, he realizes that he is responsible for the situation. However, Dr. Bake pretends to be innocent. Meanwhile, Mr. Han is very upset as he no longer has hope for his wife and baby's survival. Just then Jisoo appears with hopeful news and reports that antibodies have been found in Yoon's blood. It gives him hope that they might be able to save his wife and child. Well, unfortunately, Park discovers a scratch on his body from trying to control Mr. Ohin. He is distressed, almost sure that he will also become a zombie soon. The scene unfolds with everyone gathered outside Kim's home, bags in hand, as Kim has left. They want to use his belongings. Upon entering the house, they find a note from Kim explaining that he has been infected and is leaving. He asks that his food be shared among the residents, which pleases them since food and water are their primary concerns. However, Yoon and Park find it suspicious that Kim, who never left his apartment, would suddenly abandon it. Yoon and Park search the building for Kim and come across lawyer Gook and Sanji in an empty apartment, caught in an affair. Actually, Sangi seduced Gook when Dr. Bake invited him to fight his case. When asked if his wife knows, Sanji stays silent. During the search, they stumble upon the cleaning lady's corpse, shocking everyone. Dr. Bake is called and confirms that the death was caused by a zombie bite, suggesting Kim is responsible. Yoon, however, remains doubtful. Dr. Bake is startled to see lawyer Gook with Sangi. Tit for tat. Later, when the lawyer's wife learns of the affair, she is also shocked. Then, the residents distribute Kim's supplies among themselves. Andy brings a large amount of food to Nai, saying that since she had previously helped him with food, he wanted to return the favor. Nai's brother is pleased and starts laughing, thinking Andy has feelings for her sister. In the next scene, Yoon brings water for both Mr. Gong and Park, but Park refuses to drink it, turning his face away. Yoon finds this odd. Seo's condition worsens as she needs surgery because of her chronic illness, causing Yoon and Park to become even more worried. Park goes to the terrace and calls Mr. Han. He requests for Yoon and SEO to be evacuated. Mr. Han agrees and asks if he also wants to come. Park responds that someone needs to stay, so he will remain. Mr. Han realizes that Park is infected. The next day, Park and Yoon return to Kim's house for further investigation as Yoon suspects Kim might be hiding in a secret room, because Kim had previously mentioned a secret room in his apartment. However, when they enter the house, Jisoo calls and informs them of a strange discovery about Andy. It turns out that the Andy living in their building is not who they thought. This revelation shocks Yoon. Continuing the search, Park discovers another dead body, which turns out to be Kim's. Alarmed, Park quickly informs Yoon. At the same time, Mr. Gong, who was in Yoon's apartment, hears the voice of lawyers Gook. Gook urgently requests Mr. Han to open the door, claiming that Kim is after him and begs to be let inside. When Mr. Gong opens the door, Andy swiftly enters and begins attacking him with a knife, leaving him severely injured. Hearing the commotion, Park and Yoon rush downstairs and see the building's residents outside with their bags, looking greedy and focused on looting food from their apartment. Dr. Bake announces that there is a surprise inside. Worried, when Yoon and Park enter, they find the place covered in blood and see Mr. Wong was badly hurt. They also see Andy there, forcing Seo-yeon to play some games. Andy finally reveals his face and Yoon quickly identifies him. He is a notorious and infamous killer who has killed many people in Korea. The killer takes Seo-yeon hostage and instructs Yoon and Park to first treat Mr. Gong if they want, and then join the meeting in the gym. When the killer exits, everyone is shocked to see Andy's face, realizing they had been with Korea's most dangerous killer all along. Yoon and Park quickly tend to Mr. Gong, who needs to be hospitalized to survive. Park leaves early with an excuse, because Mr. Gong's blood could fasten his zombification. He receives a call from Mr. Han, who instructs him to safely escort Yoon, as her blood has antibodies to fight the infection. When informed, Mr. Gok's wife finds it hard to believe that her husband was involved with a killer over food. Meanwhile, the killer arrives and explains how he killed various people. The killer had first murdered the real Andy to assume someone's identity for hiding. Once trapped in the building due to the infection, he began killing people for food. He killed the cleaning lady first and then arrived at Kim's house, but Kim did not open the door. When the killer said Yoon was injured and needed medicine, Kim opened the door, leading to his brutal murder. The killer tells that Kim had the most supplies of food and water because he was living alone. Yoon and Park were deeply shocked by these revelations. After that, the killer announced that there is a switch in building 103 that can restore electricity and water, and Yoon and Park must turn it on, or the killer will kill CO. Nae protests, questioning the sanity of threatening them, and points out that activating the switch would attract zombies with the noise. Initially, the killer remains silent but then moves close to Nae and threatens to kill her. Yoon asks the killer not to harm her, agreeing to turn on the switch if spared. The killer agrees and lets Nae go. Yoon and Park proceed to turn on the switch. However, when they activate the emergency generator in the other building, the lights return, but the noise attracts zombies who start chasing them as they come outside. Yoon and Park run to escape and use the cleaning lady's card when they reach the other building. Park is aware that if they return to their building, the killer will shoot them. Meanwhile, Chul, who followed Yoon and Park midway to building 103 and decided to stay in his car until they return, gets attacked by the swamp of zombies. On the other hand, Miss O'Heen and Dr. Bake get to know that the killer will kill Yoon and Park as soon as they return. Miss O'Heen wants them dead as she believes their actions were responsible for her husband's death. Mr. Choi and his wife also side with the killer out of fear. Meanwhile, Park, who is in the lift with Yoon, informs her that her blood samples prove that her blood has antibodies and that he plans to evacuate both SEO and Yoon that day. As Yoon processes this, the lift door opens and zombies start approaching. Park uses all his strength to block the lift door. Yoon attempts to pull Park into the lift but notices a scratch mark on Park's body, realizing he is infected. Despite the zombies approaching, they are not attacking Park. Instead, they are trying to move towards Yoon. She manages to get Park into the lift just before the doors close. As she gets close, Park tells her to stay away, explaining that his heartbeat speeds up and he feels thirsty when she is near. Yoon, however, insists that she cannot stay away from him because she cares deeply for him and hugs him tightly. They reach the terrace and, with Boram's help, who is staying in a tent on the roof after getting infected, get back to their building. Meanwhile, Dr. Bake notices on his laptop that Sangi is attempting to hack his accounts. Before Dr. Bake can act, Sangi strikes him from behind, knocking him unconscious. Sangi then tries to log in using Dr. Bake's tattoo, which is the password to his accounts. At the same time, Gook's wife is furious with her husband for siding with a killer and for his affair with Sangi. However, Gook shows no remorse, which prompts his wife to lock the door. He starts shouting loudly, demanding to be let inside. Just then, Yoon appears from behind and twists Gook's arm. She rescues SEO and departs from there. As Yoon starts taking SEO away, Mr. Gook tells his wife that they need to stop her or Andy will kill them. Gook's wife, however, disregards him. Park brings Mr. Gong with him and joins Yoon and SEO. Yoon asks Mr. Gook's wife if she would like to join them since they are leaving. So Gook's wife also enters the lift and throws away her wedding ring. Gook tries to stop her, but she refuses to listen. On the other hand, the killer, who has been waiting for Yoon and Park to return, notices something is wrong when he sees the lift moving up and decides to follow. Just then, Mr. Choi attacks the killer to prevent further deaths. However, he gets stabbed in the shoulder and fails to stop the killer. As everyone starts moving to another building, Yoon asks Boram if she would like to come along. She wonders if she can actually join them despite being infected. Yoon nods and picks her up. Suddenly, the killer comes to the terrace, and as he is about to attack, Park throws a gas bomb in an attempt to escape. Despite this, the killer's bullet hits Park, leaving Yoon in shock. Park then tells Yoon that he cannot accompany them anymore and asks them to leave without him. He locks the door and expresses his gratitude to Yoon for everything. The killer shoots him again and Park collapses. Yoon manages to take everyone out. Park then throws the keys to the door away and starts laughing, which further infuriates the killer. Frustrated, the killer points a gun at Park, but Park remains unaffected. The killer questions why Park is so happy despite his wife leaving him, but Park does not respond. He demands Park to turn to see fear on his face before he dies. However, when Park turns around, we see that he has become a zombie. Park bites the killer and finishes him off, preventing his escape. Yoon quickly gets everyone into the car, but as soon as it starts, zombies begin to chase them. Mr. Han gets the path opened for them, and once they safely come out of the complex, all the soldiers surround the car. Yoon hurries to Mr. Han to request a gun to go back and save Park. Instead, Mr. Han administers a sedative to her, which deeply shocks Yoon. After that, Gook's wife and Mr. Gong are safely extracted from the car. When Yoon wakes up in the research building, Mr. Han advises her to rest, but she refuses, determined to save Park. Mr. Han explains that many people need her, so she should comply with them. But Yoon responds that Park is her top priority and she must save him no matter what. Mr. Han then takes her to his wife, explaining that they cannot delay the delivery, and that her wife can only be saved with her plasma, begging Yoon for her cooperation. Yoon agrees to stay on the condition that Mr. Han will get her out. After that, Mr. Han gives Yoon Park's mobile phone that he had given to Mr. Han, saying it should be given to her at the right time. After Mr. Han leaves, Yoon plays a video on the phone where Park reveals his deep feelings for her, stating he liked her from the start and would propose properly when everything will settle down. This causes Yoon to cry intensely. After that, Yoon gets admitted for her plasma extraction. Once done, she sees Seojeon, who mentions that she is going to see her mother, who has also been infected. When Seo meets her mother, she gets very happy, but Yoon stops her from approaching her. Seo's mother advises her to take care of herself as her surgery is scheduled today and prays for a successful outcome. She thanks Yoon for everything and then asks her to go out as she begins to turn into a zombie. Yoon gets distressed by Seo's mother's deteriorating condition. Then, she sends Seo for surgery, assuring her that both she and Park will always be with her. Meanwhile, Mr. Han asks Mr. Guk's wife about the infected residents in the building. When Yoon meets with him, she inquires about Seo's mother's chances of recovery. Mr. Han replies that it doesn't look good. Seo's mother had only been holding herself together to see her daughter, but now she can't anymore, and they will have to send her away in the truck. This news deeply upsets Yoon. Mr. Han then shows her 2 vaccine doses made from her blood, one for him and one for her, and advises her to use it carefully. He informs her that soldiers will soon come to take her to the lab to create more medicine. When Yoon asks if he's breaking his promise, Mr. Han reassures her that he always keeps his word. He gives her a military uniform, saying it will help her leave safely, and mentions that his car outside has a card to access her building. This news lifts Yoon's spirits. The commander arrives, and when he sees Mr. Han giving the vaccine to his wife, he tries to intervene, but Mr. Han displays his gun. Once the vaccine is administered, Mr. Han's wife shows immediate improvement, and Mr. Han surrenders himself. Yoon, meanwhile, enters the room of Seo's mother and gives the vaccine to her. Jisoo gets surprised by this. Yoon explains that while Park has her, it's crucial for Seo's mother to recover since she is the only one Seo has. Yoon admits she is no longer as special and that other people's blood might be useful for creating antibodies. After that, Yoon departs and gets into Mr. Han's car. When summoned, Jisoo tells everyone that Yoon attacked her and escaped, possibly leaving Korea. Well, white lies, white lies, white lies. Anyways, Mr. Han clarifies that Yoon is actually returning to the building to get her husband. This surprises Jisoo. Mr. Han explains that another person in the building has blood that could be used to make a vaccine and asks for permission to enter and retrieve that person along with Yoon. The commander agrees. Finally, Yoon reaches the complex and re-enters after showing her card to search for Park. Nae and her brother are anxious because many have already left the building without informing them, so they decide to leave too. On their way out, they spot Yoon at the door and let her in. Inside, Yoon immediately inquires about Park's condition, but Nae and her brother fall silent on this. Finally, Nae explains what happened yesterday. The scene flashes back to the previous day when Park turned into a zombie. Miss Oh-heen saw the whole incident but did not intervene. After the incident, Park quietly left. Following that, Miss Oh-heen approached the killer and tried to take the gun from him but failed as the killer was still alive and grabbed her hand. Elsewhere, Nae, scared, who was going to her apartment, saw Park entering his in a severely injured state. Nae, deeply concerned, stayed by him as he lay down in his apartment. Dr. Baek, lying on the ground with a head injury, regained his senses and saw Mr. Guk and Songi trying to decode his tattoo's alphabet to access and loot all his money. He saw some green tablets on the floor that maybe his wife had bought. Mr. Choi's wife sought help from Guk and Sangi as Andy's knife wounds had caused her husband severe bleeding, but their request for assistance was denied. Suddenly, Dr. Baek bites lawyer Guk, who starts believing that Dr. Baek is also infected. Acting like a zombie, he planned to kill Sangi, but she quickly escaped with the lawyer. When Park opened his eyes, he saw Nae and her brother beside him. Park was determined to find the killer, but Nae and her brother were hesitant. Park mentioned that since he had bitten the killer, he must also become a zombie, so finding him before he attacks the building's residents is crucial. This revelation shocked them. Dr. Baek allowed Mr. Choi and his wife to stay in his apartment, and she administered medicine to him. Park went outside Dr. Baek's apartment to warn them not to open the door for the killer, which had become infected. Dr. Baek claimed not to be afraid as he was also infected. Park revealed that Dr. Baek is not infected, but he is and is struggling to control himself to avoid attacking him. This frightened Dr. Baek, who mentioned he had taken the green tablet. Park clarified that the green tablet does not instantly turn someone into a zombie, its effects are gradual. When Park found out that Mr. Choi and his wife were also present, he asked Dr. Baek to treat Mr. Choi. Dr. Baek said he had taken them in out of humanitarian concern, which he deemed significant, and now Park asking for treatment is just too much. Park, shouting, accused Dr. Baek of keeping them there to bite them once he became a zombie. He demanded treatment for Mr. Choi and threatened to bite Dr. Baek himself if he did not. Park arrived at Chul's apartment and inquired about Chul. He learned that Chul had not returned home, which surprised him. His dada asked Park to tell his son to return home if found. Park agreed and warned them not to open the door if the killer arrived. He saw Miss Oh-heen coming out of the lift and also advised her to stay cautious in case the killer comes back. Miss Oh-heen, laughing, stated that the killer is no longer a threat as she has been killed. We see that when the killer grabbed her hand, she took a baseball bat and frantically smaced his head several times. Although Miss Oh-heen had severely beaten him, Park found the killer's body missing from its place when he checked on the roof. Park realized the killer is still alive. He then began to search for Chul with Nae and her brother. When Park approached Chul's car, Park saw blood on him and realized Chul has also become infected. Park brought Chul back to the building and told his parents that his symptoms haven't manifested yet and that staying with family might help him recover faster. Meanwhile, lawyer Gook, troubled by his hand injury and ignored by Sanji, remembers how much his wife used to care for him. Parallelly, Mr. Choi's wife was thrilled to see Minji's jewelry. Mr. Choi suggested taking over the house since they had endured poverty from the beginning. His wife agreed. So when Dr. Bake returned home, Mr. Choi attacked him with a knife, causing Dr. Bake to flee in fear. Distressed by the constant attacks, Dr. Bake sought help from Park. Mr. Choi's wife was asked to open the door for him, but she refused, claiming that Dr. Bake had tried to kill them first, which led them to drive him away. Dr. Bake, shouting, denied this and accused the woman of lying. However, Park did not trust Dr. Bake. Therefore, he decided to lock Dr. Bake in the basement. Dr. Bake begged for his laptop before leaving. After receiving it, he left. While locked in the basement, Sangi quietly attempted to retrieve the laptop to log in, but Dr. Bake grabbed her hand. Miss Oh-heen arrived and proposed a deal to Dr. Bake. She would assist him, but only if he helped her kill Park. Dr. Bake agreed. Meanwhile, Mr. Choi's wife, thrilled at the idea of seizing Dr. Bake's assets, planned to take everything once the lockdown ended, assuming Dr. Bake would have turned into a zombie by then and wouldn't be able to stop her. After returning to his apartment, Park told Nae and her brother to go back to their own apartment for their safety, saying he would stay alone in his cherished home. They left as instructed. Following their departure, Park cleaned the apartment and looked at a photo of Yoon, expressing how much he missed her. In the present, Yoon, upon learning about this, is overjoyed, believing Park is waiting for her in their apartment. She leaves excitedly, warning Nae and her brother to stay inside as the lockdown is nearly over, which brings them relief. Later, as Park waits for Yoon, he hears noises outside. Stepping out, he finds Dr. Bake holding Sangi. Miss Oh-heen orders Dr. Bake to kill all the uninfected people and frame the deaths on the infected monsters. Park counters, saying that the true monsters are not the infected, but Dr. Bake and his group. Dr. Bake then asks Park if he is thirsty and cuts Sangi's arm before pushing her towards Park. The scent of Sangi's blood triggers an intense thirst in Park. Park responds by hurling his bat at Dr. Bake and directs Sangi to flee towards the stairs. He quickly returns to his apartment, covering his head with cloth to prevent becoming a zombie. Despite his efforts, the blood from Sanji on his hand causes Park to transform, and he eventually turns into a zombie. As Park is about to be attacked by Miss Oh-heen, Yoon arrives, claiming she is there to save everyone. This announcement calms Miss Oh-heen. Dr. Bake then pretends to be a zombie once more to provoke the situation. However, Yoon comes and hits Dr. Bake, eradicating his zombie tendencies. She swiftly approaches Park, who avoids facing her. Yoon tells Park that home is where one is with the people they love, and she wants to be with him always because she loves him. Park is stunned by Yoon's return, and when she kisses him, it restores him to his normal state. Her love confession brings him immense happiness. Shortly after, Jisoo and Mr. Han arrive to support Yoon and Park. Meanwhile, Gook refuses to open the door for Sanji, instead sending an apologetic message to his wife, begging for one more chance. She rejects him, saying she no longer wants to be with someone like him, leaving Gook filled with regret. Eventually, when Gook opens the door for Sangi, who has Dr. Bake's laptop, they discover that Dr. Bake's shares have plummeted, instantly wiping out their joy. Elsewhere, Chul and his parents see on the news that Korean stocks have dropped dramatically. Soon after, the military arrives to escort the three of them, making them happy as they are finally able to leave and receive medical treatment. Meanwhile, Nae's brother is taken away, repeatedly insisting that he didn't bite anyone and isn't feeling thirsty, with Nae supporting his claims. Upon seeing Nae's brother's mark, Mr. Han informs the commander that they have found another person with antibodies in their blood, which could help produce more vaccines. Soldiers begin breaking into Dr. Bake's apartment as the Choi couple inside refuses to leave. When the soldiers enter, the couple, clutching their money, insists that the apartment and wealth belong to them, but the military is unmoved. As for Miss Oh-heen and Dr. Bake, Yoon decides to keep them in the building for a few more days as punishment for their actions. While heading downstairs, Park notices where Kim's body is being kept and decides to move it to Kim's apartment. However, when he opens the apartment door, he encounters the killer, who threatens him with a gun. A brief struggle follows, and upon hearing a gunshot, Yoon rushes to Park's aid. She sees the killer pointing the gun at Park, and the killer, desperate to quench his thirst, calls Yoon over, intending to drink her blood. Park warns Yoon to stay back, but Yoon shoots her hand, letting her blood flow and offering it to the killer. The killer, unable to control himself, succumbs to his thirst, collapses, and ultimately transforms into a zombie. As the killer prepares to attack Yoon, Park shoots him from behind, hitting him in the head and killing him instantly. Yoon quickly rushes to Park's side, finding him gravely injured. She pleads with him to hold on, but Park only smiles faintly before losing consciousness. Overcome with emotion, Yoon cries out and sobs uncontrollably. The story then jumps to a year later. Tai, now fully recovered, is overjoyed when he learns that his family has come to take him home. Meanwhile, Miss Oh-heen and Dr. Baek are facing legal consequences for their actions during the lockdown, with Dr. Baek being particularly scrutinized for killing his wife. The scene shifts to Yoon, who is still living in the apartment complex. Seo-yeon, now fully healthy after her surgery, runs up to Yoon, excitedly telling her that her mother is at work and waiting for their family to arrive. Park also shows up, hugging Yoon from behind. He has made a full recovery, thanks to the vaccine developed from Yoon's blood. They share a heartfelt moment, reflecting on their experiences over the past year, remembering the terrifying ordeal they endured among the zombies. Yoon then asks Park when he first started liking her. Park reveals that it was from the moment he first saw her on the school roof, inspired by her motivational words, realizing she was meant for him. Yoon asks if that's really true, and Park explains that he became a police officer because of her. He admits that while he had considered moving to America with his mother, he couldn't forget Yoon and chose to stay in Korea as her friend. Yoon is thrilled by this confession. The story ends on a happy note as they race each other, bringing the drama to a joyful conclusion.